Hi, my name is Ivy Starnes, and I'm a gaited horse trainer in Fort Worth, Texas. Today we're talking about horses. Is their behavior caused by attitude, bad behavior, or is it caused by pain? And then today we're going to be looking at what a lot of that pain looks like, what to be watching for, what you can check on your own. And some of the things are going to require a vet, and some of them you can kind of diagnose on your own. So we're going to be looking at that today and see how we're doing. Go ahead and comment and let me know if this is working. The video seems to maybe be glitching a little bit, so I may end up having to start again. I see you've got about a few people watching. Alright, so I'm going to keep going and then I'll restart if I need to. So I have a list, and once the video is done, I'm going to be putting this list in the description of the video, including some links for videos. But I get comments, and they range from your horse is a little bit lame, to the horse doesn't want to stand for mounting or saddling, the horse is bucking, the horse doesn't want to take the bit in its mouth, to the horse all of a sudden started spooking, or my horse now stumbles. There's a lot of things that seem to be happening. And so what we're going to talk about is what are the different causes. Now, it could be behavioral. It could be a training issue where you need to work on it, or a trainer. And it could also be pain. And pain is something it's so hard to diagnose because the horses can't tell us where they're hurting, unfortunately. I mean, we wish they could, and then this whole thing would be so much easier. Okay, so already got a bunch of people watching, which is awesome. Okay, let me see if I can. All right. Let me know if the video stops working. It's not working on my end, but it sounds like it's working for you guys. Suzanne says hello. Diana says she's very interested in the subject. Liz says it's hi. Melody says hi. John says working in Michigan. Mia says hi from Ohio. Kathleen says, yes, I just got a rescue who couldn't lower his head and ran him through 2 sessions of massage and an osteopath, and it changed him. He no longer rushed forward and he could relax. That is such an awesome testimony, Kathleen. Thank you for that. Jane Palmer says the video is good. Okay, well, until I hear otherwise, we're just going to assume the video is good, and even though it's not working for me. Let's go ahead. I'm going to give an overview, and then we're going to come back and look at each one individually. Now, I'm going under the assumption that this is pain, and at the end, we'll talk about what if it's not pain. So, let's look at a couple big ones. Again, these are overviews, and we're going to come back. So, reasons it could be pain. Reasons there could be pain. So, disease. A couple big ones are Lyme disease and or the other tick-borne viruses, like Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and EPM. And which is not a tick-borne disease. Those are a couple big disease ones that usually need to be tested by a vet. But if you live out east at all, definitely Lyme disease is very prevalent. If your horse has any kind of behavioral change, you should assume that your horse could possibly have contracted Lyme disease and call a vet. EPM I don't have as much experience with, not having dealt with it personally, but I've heard testimonies. Often it's a loss of balance and little things like tripping and stuff, so definitely consider that. But Lyme disease can cause pain all over their body. It can cause tripping. Okay, anyway, we'll come back to that. Overview. Pain. Is there pain in their mouth? I read somewhere that someone had a horse that had behavioral issues that seemed incurable. They ended up putting the mare down, or the horse down, and they did an autopsy and found that she had some issues in her mouth that were causing huge amounts of pain. Now, was that the only issue? Not necessarily. Check for that. Feet. So pain in the feet can cause lameness, and cause a lot of issues. Could be thrush, laminitis, navicular, just to name a couple, as well as it could be an abscess. Back pain could be caused by saddle fit or injury. An injury could simply be the horse is running around and they bucked too hard in the pasture, or they rolled and twisted something and hurt, and so it could be temporary or something more permanent. And back pain could also be caused by a lot of things. Saddle fit is a big one. We'll talk about that. Ulcers. Huge possibility for pain, causing nervousness, causing horsemen uncomfortable with saddling or the rider getting on. Nutritional imbalance. I am not a nutritionist nor a vet, so I cannot guide you, except that a lot of horses are deficient in things like magnesium and vitamin E and selenium, which are common ones. And so there's a lot of information out there from different feeds and suppliers, and you can talk to your vet. So definitely consider that. And so another one, the Sacroiliac Joint is another one we're looking at that cause for back pain. It's in their back, but it's in, right over the top of their hip. So we're going to look at that, and I'll have links to share. So we're going to go back to the beginning and talk about these things. And so many people are so quick to dismiss their horse's behavior as, he just doesn't want to. And a lot of the times it could be pain. So much of the time it could be pain. And some of these are easy to treat, and just to make sure that that's not an issue. Jane says, hi, video is good. Melissa says it's hello from Oklahoma. Liz says, my 4-year-old Tennessee walking horse just received SI injections 2 weeks ago. She's in a rehab program now, but went through 2 vets saying she was fine. Trainer said she's showing attitude. I'm hoping the shots and rehab program work. Good for you, Liz. And that's a great point, that she went through 2 vets who said her horse was fine, but she knew, her trainer said it was attitude, but she had a feeling it was something more, and that wasn't a 4-year-old. We tend to look for joint issues in older horses, but it can show up even as early as 4 years old. And if people started riding the horse early, you could be looking for kissing spine and hunter's bump and things like that, which can be problems with starting a horse too young. Please don't ride these horses hard till they're 4 or 5 years old. There you go. Brenda says, hello from Alabama. Great topic. Jill says she loves the videos. Thank you for the stars, Jill. Lori says, hi from Wisconsin. My horse got Lyme disease, so we got complete rest. Took several months to clear. Gets great. And Lori, the thing with Lyme disease, of course, as you know, is it doesn't clear up. It lives in their body. My dog has Lyme disease, and I know that anytime he has pain or something's off, it could be a flare-up of that disease if there's any kind of stress. So keep that in mind as well. It's super important to be aware of those viruses. Chrissy says had some SI, which is sacroiliac SI. So sacroiliac is the SI joint at the top. And I have links to videos that talk about that, because I've heard from a few people that this is more common, and I honestly hadn't heard of it until like a month ago. Chrissy says she had some SI issues with Callie. Osteopath pointed out that different body parts are linked, and that our locking stifle issue can cause lumbar and SI issues due to compensation. And that's the thing, is our whole body is connected with other parts of the body. So having a problem with the feet can cause a problem in the shoulder, or a problem with the rider can cause a problem with the feet. So it's all connected. So I'm just going to give you kind of an overview on these different things to look for that can cause pain. All right, Lyme disease. If you are east of the Mississippi, and it's actually spreading farther west, but if you're east of the Mississippi, definitely look at Lyme disease as a factor in any behavioral change. Is your horse suddenly spooking or not wanting to stand for mounting or saddling? Is he suddenly tripping? Is all kinds of behavioral things. Imagine anything that can cause joint pain in a horse. And if that's caused a change, you need to look at Lyme disease, because it has such a variety of symptoms and doesn't show itself the same way every time. And the earlier you treat it, the better it is. I know when I did check my dog, it wasn't super expensive, so definitely take a look at Lyme disease as a cause for pain or behavioral change. And then EPM is, I'm not sure if it's a virus or bacteria, but a lot of times you see it in horses stumbling, having weak back end, not being able to chew, the food falls out of their mouth. It attacks them neurologically, and I see it's probably less of an issue than like Lyme disease or some of these other things, but I want to mention it. And all of these things you can do your own research on. I am not a vet, and I'm not going to give you medical advice on these, but I'm going to bring them up because so many people are unaware of kind of some of the effects that these different diseases have, and how it can cause your horse to have attitude or behavioral problems when it actually isn't. It's your horse trying to communicate with you. Okay, now sometimes it is. Sometimes horses just don't know how to stand at the mounting block, and we teach them to stand, and they are so happy they stand, and it clearly wasn't a pain issue. But what if it is pain, and it's an ongoing thing where they won't stand, or they won't drop their head, and they're trying to tell us that their back hurts? Okay, pain in their mouth. Even if you ride with a bit, even if you don't ride with a bit, it's a really good idea to get your horse checked. Because so much can affect those joints. The jaw of the horse being able to release. I mean, we know what it feels like to have pain in our mouth or a tooth. I mean, you can have the simplest thing as a cold sore, or in your mouth a little teeny tiny canker sore, and anytime we eat, it just makes us irritable and grumpy. Well, it does that to me. How about that? When I have a canker sore, it makes me upset because it hurts to chew and eat, and I'm thinking about it constantly. So imagine your horse is feeling, and they can't tell you, and we don't generally look in our horse's mouths. I don't blame you, because you can't just stick your hand in there. So I say that as I am looking for someone who can do a good job and can check my horse's teeth and float them to make sure. You can also look for signs that they're dropping their hay, not just their food, but that they're dropping it. But anything could be caused by pain. So especially when you have a behavioral change, like your horse has always been good about this, and all of a sudden they're not, and there's no obvious explanation, look for pain. Check the teeth. Check the mouth. Feet. Again, I'm not a farrier. Here's some changes that can cause anything from just sensitivity walking on rocks. It can cause lameness even on the road. It can cause horses to stumble. You have to look at the trim and the shoeing, right? I'm a big proponent of having correct natural trim for the horse. You don't leave them long toes. You need to make sure that their heels aren't underrun and that their hoof is as natural to the horse as possible. Another very common cause of some lameness and pain, which can affect gait, is thrush. And I feel like I mentioned this a lot. The cool thing is it's so cheap and easy to treat. You just have to look for it. In the link, I'll put a link in the description that's going to link to my video on what to look for thrush. So many people think it only happens in wet areas. They think it only has a strong odor. If you lift your horse's foot up and the back of the frog, the heels, there's a crack, that is thrush. Now, there are other places thrush can hide, but that means that it has already eaten away at the tissue of the frog, and you have to treat it immediately. The good news is it can heal up in just a few weeks if you just treat it, and you don't need a vet out to do that. Laminitis, of course, that is the rotation or the inflammation of the lamina in the hoof, which can be caused and is generally can cause by a lot of things. I'm not a vet, but a lot of times we think of it as related to horses being on starches or getting into the grain. But a lot of things can cause that laminitis to flare up. So watch for your horse to stand awkwardly, to have pain that you can't diagnose. Navicular as well, and Navicular, the good trim can actually help alleviate a lot of the pain with Navicular, and combine that with some possible temporary corrective shoeing, and you can often manage Navicular. It doesn't have to be a death sentence for a horse. Abscesses cause a lot of pain and lameness. Now, abscesses tend to be very painful in horses, so they tend to either the horse is a pretty stoic horse and you don't know it till it comes out, or your horse is limping right away and it's not thrush and you can't find a nail in their hoof. A lot of times it's an abscess, and that'll take its time to work itself out, or you can do some soaking it. There's a lot of things, but feet can cause pain, and that can mess with the shoulder. It can mess with their whole body as they compensate for that pain. If you have a horse that has navicular, they may not want to land on their heels, and they're constantly land on their toes. If a horse is stiff in their back, they'll often drag their toes, which you can hear when you ride in sand or even on dirt. You can hear that toe drag, and you know that they're probably stiff in their shoulders and stiff in their back, not lifting up. That doesn't tell us the cause, but it lets us know that something is wrong. All right, let's see here. Nina says, pain. I have back pain myself. I would be on the floor if someone asked me to do anything near what we ask horses, like carry a load, often when they're in the same degree of pain. And again, I'm going to be going through this book. I haven't started it yet, but I have it on my shelf to read, called Suffering in Silence, Saddle Fit, Link to Physical and Physiological Trauma in Horses. So that's by Jochen at Sturman Schließ, and they make saddles and saddle fit and stuff, and I'm not necessarily recommending their products, but I am going to be reading through this book and reviewing it to see, just to learn more about saddle fit, so I can more correctly diagnose when it's the issue, when it's, a lot of times I've seen saddle fit happen because the horse won't drop their head. And like you're working at it for 30 minutes and I'm riding the horse and I can't get them to drop their head at all. A lot of times the first thing I look at is saddle fit, and sometimes it's a dramatic difference. Not always, but we change saddles and the horse drops the head in 5 minutes. That tells us saddle was the problem. I've had some horses gait in one saddle and then not in another, and we go back to that saddle and they gait. So clearly the saddle was the issue. Carol says, hello from Florida. How can we tell if the new horse has DSLD? She's never been lame. I believe that's what it's called. She has low pasterns. So some horses have low pasterns and it's not DSLD. It is a great question. DSLD, for those that don't know, because I've done a bit of research on it, is degenerative suspensory ligament desmitis, DSLD. And unfortunately, there's no actual way to diagnose it without like tissue samples. A lot of times you look at bloodlines, which only works if you know the horse is breeding. You can definitely have vets, you can take videos and have vets evaluate it. Horses that stand and their pasterns are low, or when they walk, it's really low, it's a problem. It's a lot of a problem in Pasafinos and Peruvian Pasos, and you'll see a lot in standardbreds, though it's getting into the Tennessee walking horses as well, and that's the DSLD. It is degenerative. There is no cure right now, but if your horse is not showing lameness, then potentially light riding till there is, but once they go downhill, there of course is no recovery. So definitely have a vet take a look at it. You can obviously, in that case, there's not really a test you can do. Nothing is, the research I've done says that there's no conclusive test and no cure. So one of the things you can do is take some videos and ask some professionals. There's some vet pages online that you could possibly get some good moving videos of your horse at. Make sure it's a good video. They can see the feet clearly, get down low with the camera so they can see the angle, have the horse both walk and trot or, gait or whatever past the camera, both directions, and maybe even in slow motion, and take a picture of the horse standing and possibly ask some vets to help diagnose it, to give you an idea. Grace says, yes, thrush is huge and so simple to treat. I can't tell you the number of times I go to a clinic and I can just see the horse standing there until they have thrush, and the owners didn't know. And so what happens is they tell me that they've had their farrier and their vet out to look at the horses and they've never seen anything wrong. I see it a lot in horses that are shod because with the shoes on, the horse's heel is not touching the ground, unfortunately, because that's where they have the best blood flows when their foot's on the ground, but because of that, the horse won't show a lot of lameness, and so the thrush grows and grows, and there's not a lot of blood flow because the horse is shod, but as soon as you take those shoes off, the horse gets ouchy because of the thrush, because now it's on the ground and now it hurts. So just check for thrush. It's so easy. Grace says Navicular and thrush go hand in hand, so treat thrush ASAP. Yep, it's all connected. Their bodies are connected. Chrissy says DSLD is really common in Pasos and in Belgians. Oh, I didn't know about the Belgians. I did know that in some certain breeds that DSLD is common. And the problem is most of the time you breed a horse without knowing if they've had DSLD. And you don't know it till they're older and you've already passed on that genetics. And so it's actually really bad. So if you ever suspect a horse has DSLD, please don't breed them. Phil says my horse DSLD was detected by ultrasound. Okay, so there you go. Probably on the ultrasound, it had to have been pretty degenerative by then. So the ligaments appear spongy on the ultrasound, so it probably has to be fairly advanced. I don't think you can test a young horse and see if they're going to have DSLD at that point. But that's good to know. You could get it checked out by ultrasound. Thank you for that information. Okay, so moving on to see where I'm at. I got it in my notes so I stay on track. Back pain, saddle fit. I've already done one video on saddle fit. I'm going to be learning a whole bunch more this week, hopefully, on saddle fit and have more information and more videos for you. You can get saddle fitters. I know Crestridge has saddle fitters that actually travel and will saddle fit when they're in the area. And I know like somebody in Texas who's going to be doing that so they can get their horse properly fitted. Other places will do saddle fit, and they'll do online stuff, and they'll show you. There's a lot of videos out there. And again, I'm going to be sharing more stuff as I learn. You can check out the link in the video. I'll put it in the description when it's done. Injury. Horses can just have an injury, and it can just make them sore temporarily. I actually injured my back last week just by making the bed. I leaned over and pulled up on the mattress and had sharp pain and really couldn't move much the rest of that day. And so I've been icing it and taking it really easy. And hopefully it's temporary, but your horses could have that same thing and never tell you. And the only way they can do is usually with their behavior. So you are your horse's best advocate. You know when your horse is off. My first dog had a slight limp, and I knew it wasn't like in his foot or his leg. I thought it was something deeper in his back and neck. I had a vet come out. He's a good horse vet, good dog vet. He couldn't even see the dog limping. But I could see the difference. Be aware of those little differences and don't just dismiss them. Because like I said, you are your horse or your animal's best advocate. So here we go. Christine says, poor bit fit causes pain. So yeah, that's another one that could go under mouth, is check your bit as well. Make sure it's a good bit for your horse. Just because it's the one that was sold with them doesn't mean it's the best. Just because it's your favorite also doesn't mean it's the best. And how you ride, of course, is going to contribute or detract from your horse's pain. Ulcers. Ulcers are a big one. God made horses to be eating something like 18 to 21 hours out of the day. That's way more than even the pickiest of us eat. They are supposed to eat all day long, and they forage. They eat grasses and weeds and leafy things, generally speaking, in the wild. Now, that means that there is always food in their stomach, and they have time to sleep and move around, but they are eating most of the time. Horses' stomachs produce stomach acid even when there's no food in them, unlike ours. So when horses don't have access to forage, either grass or hay or some other kind of roughage, their stomach is still producing acid, and when the food runs out in their stomach, that acid is now eating some holes in the stomach lining. When it gets through that, it causes what we call ulcers or sores on the stomach. And when you add sugar and starches to that can flare up the pain and cause ulcers. I'm still learning about ulcers. You can treat it. You can also get medication from the vet. And there's also a lot of resources for natural ways to treat it out there. I'm not going to tell you how. Talking to a friend of mine, she's got she has the not-for-profit gated horse rescue in out east called the Gated Advocates, and Gated Advocates Intervention Team, I think is what it is. But she told me that they treat like every single horse for ulcers because so many of them do. And if you have a horse that's stalled or doesn't have 24-hour access to feed, your horse, or in the past hasn't, even if you give it in the past, if they've had limited access to forage, then there's a chance that your horse could have ulcers. And this can cause cinching issues, it can cause bucking issues, the saddle can be sore, it can cause general irritability as the horse is in pain. Pamela says she's late joining. Can't wait to see what I missed. Oh, yeah, it's good stuff in here, hopefully. So ulcers are something that everybody should look at. You can treat naturally. You can treat using some drugs, and there's ways to do it that doesn't cost a fortune. And definitely do your research. And if you have questions, you can contact Denise Parsons because they deal with that with their rescues all the time. Nutritional balance or imbalance. A lot of times the pasture and the hay we give horses isn't quite enough to what they need, and that's based on region by region. Some horses need vitamin E, they need selenium, they need magnesium. I've heard magnesium deficiencies can cause behavioral changes in horses, nervousness. Definitely take a look at that, and maybe have a vet take a look, or just do some research on your own. The internet has opened that up. I wish I could tell you every little thing that's going to cause your horse pain and how you can fix it, but there's such a wide variety. This is just to cover it, kind of the basics. Let's see. Liz says Jazz had ulcers from chronic pain due to her back pain. Yeah, so many things. Like, they're all connected. The back pain was causing ulcers, which caused more pain, which causes tension. I had one winter, we had a rough year, and my my gelding had ulcers, I'm sure, and I was treating him like for colic, but he had it like 3 days in a row, and finally we're like, I think he has ulcers, even though he had access to hay. The hay wasn't that good, and sometimes they have to fight over the food on a bad year. Things can happen. Just treat for the ulcers and see if there's a change in your horse. Sometimes I'm not sure how advisable it is to just treat it, but I think you should err on the side of, if there's any kind of an issue, any kind of irritability, treat for the ulcers for 30 to 60 days and see if there's a difference. And like I said, there's natural ways to treat it. There's lots of different ways you can treat that. Sacroiliac joint. I am just learning about this, so I am not an expert. I am actually going to be sharing quite a few links in the description that talks about this, including one really informative video that talked about that the pain, that's the joint right behind the lumbar vertebra, right at the top of their hip, like at the top of their butt, the high point there is where the sacroiliac joint is. I'm hopefully going to learn more about it and do some more videos, but I'm going to tell you what I know and share you links to videos that will give you some ideas. It can be a cause of short striding in the back end. Well, you know what? Short striding prevents horses from having a nice, smooth gait, okay? And can cause stiffness in the back, and short striding can cause even a smooth gait to feel choppy. It's also a cause of paceyness. Now, this video I'm going to share doesn't even talk about gaited horses, but he says that the pain in the SI joint actually can cause paceyness in horses. And if it causes paceyness in non-gaited horses, you can bet it can cause paceyness in regular horses. There are some simple tests you can do. I'm still learning about them. I will check back when I have them done. Narrow walking in the back. So he basically, narrow movement. So if you watch the hind end going away from you and coming towards you at the walk and the trot, that the hind legs should be kind of stepping, 1, 2. But the video he showed for a horse that had the SI joint injury is that they would walk in a straight line, and you could see it in the video super easily. I'm like, I didn't even know to look for that. I just am learning about it now. So I'm passing that on to you, and I'll share a link for that video. It's something you can watch for. Now, just because they are stepping in the middle doesn't mean they have an injury there, but you put those things together, and no wonder gaited horses aren't gaiting. This could be a cause of a lot of problems for those that have really pacey horses. Now, injuries are not the only cause of paciness. Bad training, bad saddle fit, bad breeding is the cause of a lot of paciness in horses, especially in Rocky Mountain and Tennessee Walkers and spotted saddle horses. But paciness is creeping into all of the breeding. So I'm going to have a list of videos there that'll talk about the SI joint. And as I learn more, I am definitely going to be sharing and creating more videos. Chrissy says, contact your local ag and find out what your region is deficient in for minerals. That's great. I know you can contact your local, whatever they're called, the Bureau of Farm Management, your local ag area. The county usually has one, and you can just look it up, or contact your Chamber of Commerce and they'll help you. And they'll be able to tell you which what grass you guys have and what minerals you guys are generally deficient in, and you'll be able to supplement accordingly. Also talk to your vet and farrier. A lot of times, if they're good, they know about this. My farrier is telling me some of the things to watch for now that I've moved down here from Illinois. Things are different in Texas. Shanna says, praying for my back to recover quickly. Thank you. Me too. Icing it has been helping a lot, and I'm moving pretty much without pain, but I know it's not completely healed. All right, so let's do an overview again. Pain, causes of pain, disease, such as Lyme disease and APM. Pain can be caused in the mouth, the feet, or back pain. Mouth can be caused by just bad teeth. It can be caused by the wrong kind of bit. Feet, thrush, laminitis, navicular, and abscesses are the most common reasons for foot pain and definitely should be looked at. Back pain from saddle fit and injury. Ulcers. Check for ulcers. Nutritional balance or imbalance, and injury to the SI joint. Those are the biggest causes of pain that will cause behavioral changes. A lot of these, if you catch them early, you'll be able to help your horse feel much, much better. And you can get rid of some of the behavioral things. Remember, things like bucking and rearing and not standing for mounting and not standing for the saddle to be put on, or pinning their ears when you put the saddle on. All of these things, you know your horse. You're the one who's been around him. You're the one who can advocate and say, like, this is not normal for my horse. My horse is struggling with this, and something is off. If you're east of the Mississippi, check for Lyme disease. It's just one of those things that's very prevalent, and there's a behavioral change. Sometimes there's other joint issues, a stifle issue or a hock issue or something in the pastern or the fetlock or the cannon bone. There's a lot of other things that can cause issues, yes, but these are commonly overlooked ones that I'm hearing about, especially when you're talking about horses that are coming from rescues. They're getting horses in all kinds of conditions, some good condition because their owner surrenders, some bad condition, and they still need to check for ulcers. They still need to check for these things, and I want you guys to at least have an idea. All right, well, that's all I have right now. As soon as this video is over, I'm going to post the list of things here and the links to some of the different videos that I mentioned that will hopefully be helpful to you. Hopefully you guys can do your own research. Wednesday, we are going to be talking about cantering. Again, did you know that I already have 3 free videos on training your horse to canter? And so many people bring up questions. So I'm going to try to do a more comprehensive video about training your horse to canter. That'll be on Wednesday. And so thank you guys so much for watching. Jane says, see you this weekend at Misty Run. Yep, I'm heading to Virginia this weekend for our clinic. So that'll be a lot of fun. Kelly says, thank you. You're welcome. Thank you guys so much for watching. It makes it so much more fun to do these videos when there are people online to interact with. I mean, it's a lot of fun to see the comments afterwards and to go and reply. But honestly, to see the comments and that people are watching live is some of the funnest part about doing this. And if you have any questions or I missed something or you have a good resource to share, please go ahead and post that on here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys on Wednesday.